You know, when you drop a physical object, say like your favorite coffee mug on a hard tile
Oh,
floor.
the worst.
Right. But the physics of that event are completely immediate. I mean, it hits, it shatters, it's broken, it's done.
Yeah, it's undeniable.
Exactly. Your brain processes the sound, the visual, and it instantly categorizes the event like, okay, mug is gone. You grab a broom and you move on.
It's immediate and more importantly, it's concrete.
Hmm.
The reality of the loss is totally binary.
Right.
You don't stand there for 3 weeks staring at the shards, wondering if the mug is, secretly still intact, or if there's some parallel universe where you didn't drop it.
Exactly. But when you drop a dream or when a major life opportunity suddenly shatters, that breakage happens in this agonizing, invisible slow motion.
Yeah.
The pieces don't sweep up neatly. They stay suspended in your mind. You wake up thinking about them, and they're constantly demanding your attention, basically forcing your brain to replay the drop over and over again.
Psychologists actually refer to this as a form of ambiguous loss.
Ambiguous loss.
Yeah. We are biologically wired to crave the certainty of the broken mug. But an emotional loss or uh, a sudden professional derailment, it leaves us in incredibly murky territory.
Because you can't see the pieces.
Exactly. There is no physical evidence of the shattered dream, so the brain just keeps searching for it.
And that murky territory is exactly what we're exploring today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
I want you, listening right now, to think about a time you lost something truly important. Maybe it was a career opportunity you banked your entire future on.
Or a personal goal you worked tirelessly for.
Yeah, and you just felt completely stuck, paralyzed. This deep dive is about the exact anatomy of that feeling, and more importantly, the specific mechanisms of what happens next.
The recovery phase.
Right. We are drawing from an amazing narrative source called The Redirection of Loss, a journey through change, and looking specifically at a story inside it titled Everything Happens for a Reason.
Which is a heavy title, but we'll get into that.
We will. But we aren't just like reading a fable today. Our mission is to extract the actual psychology of loss, how we process sudden changes, and the frankly surprising tools we use to navigate from total disappointment to genuine growth. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really understand that journey, we have to look closely at the mechanics of the mind under extreme stress.
Okay.
When a major loss hits, our initial reaction is almost entirely driven by the brain's threat detection center.
Yeah.
Basically, logic goes straight out the window.
We actually see this perfectly illustrated through the protagonist of our source material, Ethan. He loses a massive opportunity.
And it's not just a casual setback, right?
No, not at all. It's something he poured his absolute soul into. He believed in it, he worked relentlessly for it, and then literally overnight, it just evaporates.
Yeah.
So he's hit with this tidal wave of disappointment, confusion, and frustration. But what caught my eye isn't just that he's sad, it's the specific cognitive trap he falls into.
The looping.
Yes. He starts looping on two specific questions. Why did this happen to me, and what did I do wrong?
Which is, it's the brain trying to solve an unsolvable equation.
Right. And when I was looking at Ethan's reaction, my first thought wasn't that he was failing, but that his brain was treating the lost opportunity like a literal predator it needed to analyze.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to frame it.
Like he's trying to figure out how the tiger got into the house so it doesn't happen again.
That's a great way to look at it. Evolutionarily, we are meaning-making machines. If something bad happens, The brain demands a causal link to prevent future harm.
Makes sense.
The problem is that questions like, why me? And what did I do wrong? Force your brain search engine to look exclusively backward.
Right.
You're demanding an explanation from the past. And when you do that, you enter a state of total rumination. Days pass, and Ethan stays completely frozen because his mental energy is entirely consumed by analyzing a ghost.
He's analyzing what could have been. But I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
I mean, I sort of see it like he's staring at a locked door while holding a massive ring of keys, but he's so busy asking why the door is locked that he doesn't even try to put a new key in the lock.
Exactly.
But is this initial period of getting stuck and looking backward like fundamentally a failure of perspective? Because to me, it feels like an inevitable, necessary part of the human grieving process.
Right.
You can't just lose something huge and immediately pivot to, well, time to move on. Shouldn't we expect him to loop a bit?
This raises an important question, and you are completely right that the initial shock and the desire for an explanation are unavoidable.
Okay.
Grieving the loss of a future you imagine is incredibly healthy. But the stagnation, the part where days turn into weeks of being frozen, that happens when we allow a temporary emotional reflex to harden into a permanent mental posture.
I see.
Ethan isn't failing by asking why, but he is getting trapped because he lacks the catalyst to interrupt that specific neurological loop.
And his catalyst arrives in a very unassuming way. Ethan goes to a quiet park in the evening, still entirely trapped in this mental loop, just trying to escape his own head.
Yeah.
He sits down and he meets an older man named David.
The mechanics of their interaction here are just brilliant, particularly in how they model emotional co-regulation.
How so?
Well, David notices Ethan's distress and gently asks if he's okay.
And Ethan just spills everything. I mean, he unloads the loss, the confusion, the fear.
Right.
But here's what fascinated me. David doesn't interrupt. He doesn't offer a quick fix. He just listens in total silence.
Yes.
I was thinking about why that specific detail matters so much, because if I'm pouring my heart out and someone tries to instantly silver lining my pain, I get defensive.
Totally.
I feel like they're just trying to shut me up. David's silence felt like a physiological reset for Ethan.
You've hit on something crucial there. When someone tries to fix your grief with immediate advice, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, it often interprets that as a dismissal of the threat.
Oh.
Yeah, it actually makes you double down on the pain to prove it's real. By offering profound silence, David provides a safe container. He is validating the pain without reinforcing the panic.
That makes so much sense.
That silence allows Ethan's nervous system to finally downregulate. And it's only after that foundation is set that David offers his perspective.
And that perspective is the core pivot of this whole narrative. David tells him, sometimes we don't understand things when they happen. But later we see the reason.
Right.
And then he says, not everything that feels like a loss is a loss. Sometimes it's a redirection.
It's a complete cognitive reframe.
Yeah.
It takes the concept of a loss, which the brain views as a permanent deficit, like a black hole, and turns it into a vector, a change in trajectory.
Okay, but let's be totally honest here.
Yeah.
When you are deeply hurting, hearing everything happens for a reason or it's just a redirection can sound like toxic positivity.
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds like a cheap cliche you'd read on a throw pillow in a waiting room. Ethan even feels that way at first. He pushes back and literally says, I don't see any reason. This just feels like a mistake.
Right.
So if it sounds like a cliche, how does this actually break through Ethan's grief here? Why doesn't he just roll his eyes and walk away?
Because context is everything. David didn't lead with the cliche. He led with empathy and silence.
Right, the container.
Exactly. But more fundamentally, David isn't deploying toxic positivity. Toxic positivity says, don't be sad, look on the bright side.
Yeah, which is infuriating.
Right. David is saying, this hurts and that hurt has a function. He suggests that difficult moments exist to push us to change.
Okay.
He is reframing the pain not as a punishment from the universe, but as the necessary friction required to move you off a path you were no longer meant to be on.
Friction required to move. I like that a lot. It's almost like a rocket needing resistance to launch.
That's a great analogy.
And it actually works for Ethan. He goes home feeling calmer, not magically healed, which I think is very realistic, but the panic has subsided enough for him to take a tiny, small action.
Yes.
And here's where the source material takes a wildly unexpected turn.
It gets incredibly specific about the tools he uses to rebuild his momentum.
Yeah.
And they are not what you would expect at all.
Right, because he decides to read, but he doesn't grab a dense philosophical treatise on the nature of suffering. He doesn't grab a massive self-help manual either.
No, he doesn't.
He turns to beginner language learning books, specifically things like short stories in English for beginners, a book called Learn English Through Stories, 16 stories to improve your English grammar, and an audio program called Effortless English.
Yeah.
The stories are super simple, the language is basic, and he focuses on a specific mantra from the audio. Don't focus on what is perfect, focus on progress.
Which is a really profound shift from his previous mindset of demanding everything go back to normal.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. Of all things, why do you think he turns to beginner language learning books instead of a traditional self-help manual? If I'm going through an existential crisis, I'm not picking up a book on beginner grammar.
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah. But I was trying to figure out why this works, and I realized it might be about lowering the barrier to entry. Like, if you're grieving, your brain's RAM is completely used up.
Definitely.
Reading a heavy self-help book might just cause a system crash. So is this basically a way of reducing cognitive load?
That is precisely what is happening. When you are trapped in a cycle of rumination, your cognitive load is absolutely maxed out.
You have no bandwidth left.
Exactly. Your brain is exhausted from spinning its wheels on the why me puzzle. A complex task would overwhelm him. But a beginner language book?
Yeah, why that?
The simplicity of the language tasks serves as a gentle cognitive reset. It's the mental equivalent of rebooting a computer in safe mode.
Safe mode. That makes so much sense. It strips away all the background applications that are draining the battery.
Exactly. It requires just enough focus to pull his attention away from his grief, but it's not so demanding that it triggers frustration.
Oh, that's smart.
Furthermore, the process of language learning inherently embodies that mantra of progress over perfection. You don't learn a new language flawlessly on day one.
No, you stumble all the time.
You stumble, you mispronounce a word, you try again. By engaging in this specific type of learning, Ethan is quietly rebuilding his self-efficacy.
He's proving to himself he can still do things.
Right. He's proving to his own brain that he can still learn, adapt, and move forward, even if it's just one basic vocabulary word at a time. It's a low-stakes environment for generating dopamine through small wins.
He's generating momentum without the pressure of his entire career or future hanging in the
Right.
balance. And this gentle cognitive reset, combined with the emotional grounding he got from David on the park bench, it leads to the absolute turning point of the text, the paradigm shift.
The change in the question.
Exactly. Ethan finally stops asking, why did this happen to me? And he starts asking a radically different question. What can I learn from this? And the narrative treats this as the moment everything changes.
Because it is. The questions we ask ourselves literally act as the steering wheel for our attention.
I was actually thinking about this, like changing the search parameters in a massive database.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you type, why is my life ruined, into your brain's search engine, it's going to instantly return millions of results detailing your past failures, your insecurities, and all the things you can't control.
Right, it finds what you ask for.
But the moment you type in, what can I learn, the algorithm shifts entirely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm.
what you're describing is essentially the activation of the reticular activating system, or the RAS in the brain.
Wait, the RAS?
Yeah, it's a network of neurons that filters incoming information based on what you tell it's important.
Okay.
So why did this happen to me? Steers your RAS to look for evidence of victimhood.
Oh, well.
But what can I learn from this? Commands your RAS to scan the present environment for opportunities, resources, and actionable steps. It demands agency.
It's like changing a car from reverse into drive. You are still sitting in the exact same vehicle, but your direction of travel changes entirely.
That's a perfect analogy.
And the behavioral outcome in the story is immediate. Once his brain starts looking for actionable steps, he actually takes them. He stops staring at the locked door of his past.
Yeah, he grabs a new key.
Exactly. He starts learning new skills, exploring new avenues, trying things he's never attempted before. The heavy machinery of his life, the fact that he lost his dream opportunity, it hasn't physically changed. But his direction of travel changes completely just by shifting that internal search parameter.
It beautifully illustrates that our mindset directly dictates our behavioral output.
Yeah.
The objective reality of the lost opportunity remained constant.
Right.
But Ethan's relationship to that loss transformed. He stopped viewing it as a permanent injury and started treating it as a training ground.
That's powerful.
Because his relationship to the event changed, he changed. He became more resilient, more adaptable, and more open. The loss didn't destroy him. It served as the very anvil on which his new mindset was forged.
Which brings us to the payoff.
Yeah.
Weeks and months pass, and Ethan receives a new opportunity.
Yes, the resolution.
And the story explicitly notes that it is different from the one he lost, but it is better. He has this massive aha moment where he realizes David was right all along.
Yeah.
If he had never lost that first opportunity, he never would have been available or frankly capable enough to find this new one. The redirection makes sense.
It is the ultimate validation of the theory. The pain of the initial loss was the necessary admission price for this new superior path.
I'm going to challenge the neatness of this narrative, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is a very satisfying, fable-like ending. He lost Job A, he suffered, he leveled up his mindset, and the universe handed him Job B, which is objectively better. But real life rarely hands us a neatly wrapped, objectively better opportunity just because we suffered gracefully. Sometimes the new job pays less.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes the new path is just fundamentally harder. So even if that new opportunity wasn't visibly better on paper,
Mm.
wasn't his internal transformation becoming a person who can survive a shattering loss and remain open to the world? Wasn't that the actual victory?
I completely agree with your pushback. And I think pulling back the layers of the narrative supports your view entirely.
Really?
Yes. The external opportunity in the story is really just a metaphor. The ultimate lesson isn't a transactional promise that suffering equals a better paycheck.
Right.
The real better opportunity wasn't the new job. The better thing was the upgraded version of Ethan.
Ah, I love
It's
that.
the version of him that now knows how to regulate his emotions, how to lower his cognitive load when overwhelmed by using safe mode, and how to actively reframe a crisis into a learning opportunity. That internal upgrade is the actual redirection.
So, what does this all mean? When we boil this down for you, the listener, who is sitting there right now, maybe staring at the shards of your own dropped mug, what is the ultimate takeaway?
It all distills down to how we interpret the friction in our lives. When you are in the thick of a loss, when it's dark and you are confused, you won't understand it.
And that's okay.
And that is perfectly okay. But you have to shift your perspective from viewing life as something that happens to you, which basically makes you a passive victim of circumstance, to viewing life as something that happens for you.
Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. That is a massive mental pivot.
It really is.
It means looking at the shattered pieces of whatever you lost and deciding to make a mosaic instead of just demanding the universe give you your unbroken mug back.
Exactly. It requires giving up the demand for the past to change and accepting the invitation to build the future using the materials you have right now.
To wrap up today's deep dive, we've explored the complex anatomy of processing sudden change. We've seen that navigating loss isn't about ignoring the pain or blindly forcing a positive spin on a terrible event.
No toxic positivity allowed.
Right. It's about recognizing the neurological trap of the why me loop. It's about finding surprisingly simple tools like the cognitive safe mode of a beginner's workbook to quiet an overwhelmed brain.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about changing your brain's search parameters by asking, what can I learn from this to spark that vital redirection?
It's about trusting the friction, knowing it's shaping you for whatever comes next.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of time talking about how endings are actually new beginnings and how that mental shift creates real change. But think about the space between those 2 points.
The transition.
Yeah. Think about that quiet park bench where Ethan sat in total silence, just letting the reality of his situation exist without immediately trying to fix it. We spend so much of our lives trying to rush out of the uncomfortable, quiet stillness of uncertainty.
We really do.
But what if that empty space isn't just a waiting room where we suffer? What if that uncomfortable stillness is the actual necessary workshop where our future selves are built?
That's the exact space where the new search parameters are written.
Exactly. Because sometimes the shattering of the glass isn't the end of your story. It's just the alarm bell telling you the real work has finally begun. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep growing, and keep looking for your own redirections.